Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 38th favorite dad in the family community, Papa West, Jacob West. And although nothing is wanting to work for me, technology wise, I am here. It is another episode of TMG Takes the Field, our usually once a week show about everything sports related. And I say usually because occasionally I miss shows. It happens. Made sure not to miss it today because that would be bad if I missed it today. Wouldn't be bad. It would just happen. Before I lose it with all my constant rambling and whatnot, let's get into some breaking news. Again, this is where I talk about NFL stuff that's kind of happening. Not a lot to go because I could be naming all the people who are going to miss the next however many weeks due to COVID protocol. I could talk about the horrible things Bill Belichick does, including winning a football game where his quarterback only throws the ball 3 times. I could talk about how Mac Jones shouldn't be Offensive Rookie of the Year for winning a game after throwing the ball 3 times, because it really proves that you're not valuable to your team if you can be non-existent pretty much and your team wins the game. But we're not going to talk about that. No, what we're going to talk about really just one thing, and that is Seattle Seahawks safety Jamal Adams. Reason I bring up Jamal Adams is because dude tore his labrum in their most recent win against the 49ers. For those of you who do not know, because I really don't know, the labrum is a muscle. I believe it's a muscle in your shoulder. It's in this general area. I thought it sounded a lot dirtier than it actually was when I first heard it. But no, it's a shoulder injury. Usually this makes people out 8 to 10 weeks. He did injure it enough where he is going to require surgery. This will be taking him out for the remainder of the season. And I do believe that is regardless of if the Seahawks make it to the playoffs or not, which this is a huge loss for them. Because Jamal is one of those interesting players. He really doesn't perform that great. I mean, you think of a safety, which you want in a safety, the ball hawk, someone who's going to intercept, create turnovers, or at least deflect passes to keep the other team from scoring. You wish he could get you the ball. He only has like 2 or 3 interceptions in his career, which is not great for a safety. He does have a couple sacks, a couple forced fumbles, but he does have a lot of intangibles. He is a great leader for that defense. He was a great leader for the Jets defense before they traded him. And it is sad to see him go. It's especially sad for me because I have him in my family fantasy league, which we draft defensive players. It's amazing. And I do have Jamal Adams on my team. But I'm going to take a look, see what's in the chat. Jonathan Peck saying, hi. Hey, Jonathan. What is up? Yeah, Logan Thomas. Jonathan, is there any news on Logan Thomas? Because he got hurt in their most recent win against the Raiders, and I haven't heard anything official. I know there's a lot of scare that it was a torn ACL or MCL, but nothing officially came out that I have seen. I know since Jonathan is a Washington football fan, he would know just about immediately on that one. But anyway, that's really all we're going to talk about as far as breaking news goes. Next, I do want to talk about the NBA just a little bit. Nothing crazy going on in the NBA. No crazy trades have happened yet. They'll happen eventually. One thing, Luka Doncic, I believe it's Doncic is how it's like actually pronounced, or how most people pronounce it. He feels he should be getting a lot more fouls called against him than have been called against him. Jason Kidd, coach for the Dallas Mavericks, my favorite team, has publicly said he wishes Luka would just play through it, and not lobby for these fouls. Luka has publicly said that he's right. He should play through it, not lobby for it, and has also said that his conditioning is not up to par, which is incredibly sad because I'm a Mavericks fan. He's our greatest player since Dirk Nowitzki, um, which isn't that long ago, but still greatest player since Dirk Nowitzki. And he's supposed to be all that in a bag of chips. He's been doing great, but he can always do better. Jonathan Peck hitting us up. He's out for the year, but he didn't tear his ACL. That's what I figured. Again, I hadn't heard anything. I figured if it came up that it was a torn ACL, we would hear that pretty quickly, but just haven't. Thank you for being there for me. But the other stuff that I do want to talk about with the NBA is standings. Right now in the Eastern Conference at number 1, we have the Brooklyn Nets at 17-7. The Chicago Bulls right behind them at 17-9. The Milwaukee Bucks 16-10. Miami Heat 15-11, along with the Washington Wizards, both teams tied for 4th place. Who saw that coming? Not me. The 76ers are at 14-11. The Cleveland Cavaliers are at 14-12. The Atlanta Hawks and the Boston Celtics are at 13-12. The Charlotte Hornets are at 14-13. New York Knicks at 12-13. Toronto Raptors 11-14. Indiana Pacers 11-16. Orlando Magic 5-20, and then the Detroit Pistons at 4-20. So right now the Nets are leading the Eastern Conference. They currently have the number 1 seed, which is what I picked, I think. Right now we do have Cleveland and Atlanta holding up the last 2 spots. Boston and Charlotte are on the outside looking in, which I don't know why they have Atlanta with the lead over Boston. I guess there's some tiebreakers that Atlanta has over Boston. I don't know what they are, but it doesn't matter because the season's not over yet. It's nowhere near over. We just like to see where everyone is at. And then as far as the Western Conference, tied for the best record in the NBA, Golden State and Phoenix are both at 20-4. Utah Jazz are at 16-7. Memphis Grizzlies 14-10. The Clippers are at 13-12. The Lakers are also at 13-12. The Mavericks are at 11-12. Same with the Denver Nuggets. The Minnesota Timberwolves are at 11-13. Portland Trailblazers 11-14. Sacramento Kings at 10-14. San Antonio Spurs 8-15. Oklahoma City Thunder 8-16. Houston Rockets at 7-16, and the New Orleans Pelicans at 7-19. Bless me right there. So Golden State and Phoenix are tied. It does right now look like Golden State has the tiebreaker, so they are technically the number 1 seed. Dallas and Denver are just at the 7-8. Minnesota and Portland on the outside looking in. But again, basketball, we have a lot of basketball left to play. So it is going to be fun to watch these rankings stay nowhere near the same. They're going to be turning over so much. Next, we have the MLB. This is where I say, I'm sorry, I am not smart. I'll be honest, baseball, I'm not a huge follower of. I like to kind of follow it. But it's just one of those where I never do like I say I do. I thought that the MLB lockout was going to be next year. It's this year. Like 2 hours after I turned off the show, I got a notification saying that Major League Baseball has officially locked out players. And that's exactly what's happened this whole week. So really no news in the MLB because we have no idea what the lockout's going to do. Also, this is the first time since 1990 I did read that. I was thinking 94. It was 1990. Was the last time there was a lockout. And that, I'm pretty sure, was a major lockout that actually affected the season. So hopefully this one that's happening right now, not next year, right now, hopefully this does not last too terribly long. Hopefully both sides can come to an agreement, because sports is what brings us together. Um, I know if I didn't have sports, I wouldn't be doing this show. And that means I'd have to think of something else to do instead of doing the show. Um, I mean, I could definitely find a lot of stuff to do, but I enjoy doing this instead. So please, Major League Baseball and the players of Major League Baseball come to an agreement. Let's get some sports going. Next, I do want to talk about soccer, mainly Major League Soccer. Saturday and Sunday, we had the conference finals of the MLS playoffs. In the West, on Saturday, Portland beat Real Salt Lake 2-0. And then on Sunday, New York City FC beat the Philadelphia Union 2-1. Which means this Saturday, the 11th, Portland will be taking on New York City FC for the MLS Cup. Who saw this matchup? I didn't. I don't know who did. It was not me. But I'm sure somebody called it out there. It should definitely be an exciting match to watch. Something else I do want to bring up in the lovely world of soccer. And the reason I bring this up here very shortly, I will be releasing the newest episode of the TMG Trivia Singles 32-man tournament. And there were some comments made in that tournament, or in that match. 2-1, Joe Hotfuzz Fairley. He is a Chelsea fan. For those who do not know, they play in the English Premier League, which is the English version of soccer. And this Saturday, I believe it was, Saturday, Chelsea played West Ham United and lost 3-2. There were a lot of other games that happened in the Premier League, but that is the only one I care about, because I made a nice little fun dig at him there, where I asked, hey, with your competitor David, are you going to go the Chelsea route where you're the favorite, or are you going to go the West Ham route where you play spoiler? And he didn't answer me. And so I said, well, looks like you're going the Chelsea route. I can think of 3-2 reasons why that's not a good idea. Fun fact, West Ham beat Chelsea 3-2. So that is why that is there. See, you have to watch this show and TMG Trivia to hear the joke and then to get the joke, or at least have it explained to you. I thought that was fun. Joe, I hope you thought that was funny, because I spent a whole 2 seconds thinking of that joke. I'm going to go to the comments real quick. Jonathan Peck, my prediction is we might get a delayed spring training and no shortage of the season. That's the common thought, is that once it starts hitting that spring training, is when both sides start getting affected, and so that's usually when things are made. Again, I hope an agreement comes tomorrow. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Just to know. I mean, we have so much time before baseball is actually going to be around. I believe it's March or February. Granted, there are times before that where pitchers and catchers start reporting, start training. There is some training that goes on. So we do have some time before we need an agreement. I just really like one tomorrow. That'd be nice. But it does not happen most of the time. Jonathan, have you seen Trevor Zega's wow goal for the Ducks? No, I have not. But send that to me and I'll look at it. You're talking about the Ducks and goals. I'm guessing that's hockey. I'm guessing, but we can talk about that later, Jonathan. We don't talk about hockey yet. Maybe we'll talk about that soon. I don't know yet. We're not there yet. We'll need to think of something here pretty soon, because the major thing that I like to talk about is coming to an end, and that is NCAA football. NCAA football this weekend. We had championship weekend. I'm going to go ahead and just talk about all of the rankings anymore. I just got to say that. So we won't be talking about rankings, except for 5 or 6 teams. We'll talk about their rankings. But we will break down every single conference that had a championship game over the weekend. Who won, who's a champion, and who lost, and who's a loser. So on Friday, we had the Ryan Conference USA Championship, or just the Conference USA, because it's named after Ryan. I don't know who Ryan is. But the Conference USA Championship, Western Kentucky took on the University of Texas of San Antonio. UTSA had an amazing season this season, went undefeated up until the last game of the regular season. So a lot of people were thinking, hey, are they going to be able to bounce back against a good Western Kentucky team? UTSA won 49-41. University of Texas of San Antonio is your Conference USA champion. In the Pac-12 championship game, Oregon took on Utah. This was a rematch of a couple weeks ago. Oregon had one loss to Stanford, but was still riding high, especially after their victory against Ohio State in week 2 or week 3. Riding high in the polls, hoping to be able to win out and make it to the college football playoffs. Lost to Utah a couple weeks ago, so this was redemption. Utah, however, beat Oregon 38-10. Utah is your Pac-12 champion. I will say Oregon was able to score against them, unlike last time, but Utah coming out on top as well. And then Saturday, for the MAC football championship, which I believe is the Mid-American Conference, Northern Illinois playing Kent State. Northern Illinois won 41-23. Mountain West Championship, Utah State took on San Diego State. San Diego State wanting to prove to Papa West that they are in fact San Diego State and not South Dakota State, because those are two very different teams. But they proved nothing to me. Utah State won by a very wide margin, 46-13. In the Sun Belt, Appalachian State took on the University of Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns. Louisiana won 24-16 without their coach, who is now Florida's coach. And then we have the interesting games. The Power Five, which are not really the Power Five, but 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the final 5, the ones with one actually has no implication at all. That's why I'm going to start with it. The American Coastal Conference, the ACC, Pittsburgh was taking on Wake Forest. Pittsburgh won 45-21. Now we have the major ones with huge playoff contention. So the first one is the Big 12, Oklahoma State, a one-loss team, hoping to make it into the playoffs, which if they win, it would have been really hard for them not to make it. Going up against Baylor, a two-loss team who still wanted to prove that they belong there and want to get some redemption after losing to Oklahoma State earlier in the year. It was a very close game. It came down to not even a full yard, but Baylor came out on top 21-16, crushing the hopes of the Oklahoma State Cowboy fans. In the SEC, Georgia took on Alabama. Alabama, team that's always there, team that's always number one usually. Nick Saban, one of the best coaches in college, going up against Georgia, the number 1 seed, the best defense in college football, wanting to prove they are not the little brother anymore. They are large and in charge. This would have also been like one of the first times Nick Saban lost to one of his former assistants in a big game with Kirby Smart. But it was not the case. Alabama with a demanding win, 41-24. Next, we're going to go to the American Athletic Conference. Houston and Cincinnati. Cincinnati currently number 4, hoping to keep this undefeated dream alive and hoping to stay in the college football playoffs. Be the perfect ending to the perfect year. Taking on Houston, team that has actually had a really good year. Only had 1 loss, and that came against Texas Tech in the first game of the season. 11 straight wins. They were ranked 21 at the time, hoping to say, hey, you can't look past us, Cincinnati. We're here. We want this championship. But Cincinnati came out on top, 35-20. And then the final game, which in the grand scheme of things, I probably should have done for second or third, definitely not last. The Big Ten championship game. Michigan, first time they beat Ohio State in 8 years. Jim Harbaugh's year, because everyone said he can't beat his rivals, and it's so true with Ohio State, who he never was able to defeat. It was looking like a lost season after they lost to Michigan State, but they were able to turn it around, taking on Iowa. Hasn't had the best year, so to say. Some losses that they wish they could have taken back and won. Looking at you, Purdue. And then also looking to play spoiler. This will not be Michigan's year, Ohio wishes to say, but Michigan destroyed Iowa 42-3. Iowa had like no chance after the first couple minutes. And what really baffles me about this, we talked about New England and how they were able to win a game with Mac Jones throwing 3 times, 2 receptions, 12 yards. Michigan's kind of like in the same boat. Cade McNamara, for the full year, I'm going to pull up his stats. 2,470 yards. He is 59th in all of college football. Threw for 15 touchdowns. That is tied for 72nd. And has a QBR of 77.4. In this game against Iowa, he threw 16 for 24, 169 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Imagine what this team can do with a quarterback. Of course, you had Hassan Haskins, who destroyed Ohio State, was able to run it in for a couple touchdowns. He had 56 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Blake Corum was the biggest performer, 74 yards and a touchdown. So had a couple more yards, not as many touchdowns, which means the college football playoffs have been set. And right now, the rankings are in 7th place, Baylor. After winning the Big 12 championship, they bumped up a couple spots. They jumped over Oklahoma State, of course, and they're at number 7. At number 6 is Ohio State. They didn't do anything last week, so they really couldn't have done anything. Now, could they have? Not really. At number 5, this is where it gets interesting. Notre Dame, again, a team that didn't do anything last week because they couldn't have done anything last week, but sit and hope for several teams to lose. That means your final 4. The teams did not change, while the placings did change. Number 4 will be Cincinnati after this amazing undefeated season. Number 3 is Georgia, falling 2 spots after that loss. Number 2 is Michigan, staying exactly where they were the week before. And number 1 is Alabama. They did jump Michigan with their win against Georgia. So the college football playoffs are set. We will see Alabama taking on Cincinnati and Michigan taking on Georgia. Of course, because I love predictions, Alabama will be taking on Michigan this year in the college football championship. Alabama will reign supreme like they have done so many times before, unfortunately. But again, these are just my picks, which means everything that I just said will be wrong. Do want to talk about some head coaching changes that have happened. We did talk some last week about like some of the big ones. One thing that I find interesting is I forgot to talk about Texas Christian University. I'm a Horned Frogs fans. I'm a Horned Frog fan, Horned Frogs fan. Gary Patterson, coach for over 20 years, right at about 20 years, stepped down in the middle of this year. TCU did name their new coach. They will, Sonny Dykes, the former SMU coach, will be leaving SMU, going on to TCU. SMU did hire Sonny Dykes' replacement. They hired Rhett Lashley, offensive coordinator of Miami. I believe that is Miami of Ohio. I don't think it is the Florida Miami, but we will see. We did talk about Washington. They hired Kalen DeBoer of Fresno State. Louisiana Tech, LA Tech, did have Skip Holtz as their coach, no longer the coach anymore. They hired Sonny Cumbie. He was Texas Tech offensive coordinator. He was also a coordinator with TCU. He was a quarterbacks coach for a while too, and offensive coordinator. They had 2 offensive coordinators for a couple years. Sonny Cumbie was one of them. Brian Kelly, of course, is going to LSU. Virginia Tech did just hire former Penn State defensive coordinator Brent Pry as their new head coach. Notre Dame needing a replacement for Brian Kelly. Promoted from within, their defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman is the newest head coach. Oklahoma needing to find a replacement for Lincoln Riley. They have come to an agreement with Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables. I love this signing. Clemson has had a sick, nasty defense for a long time. It's also the reason why they beat Wake Forest, and they were favored to beat Wake Forest a couple weeks ago. Big 12 does not have a lot of defenses. So if he can bring a defense to Oklahoma, that's going to be a scary team. Nevada's head coach, Jay Norvell, I believe he left. The website that I'm looking at doesn't say exactly what happened. It just says that he's out. He has actually signed with Colorado State University. I just have the picture. I have to think of who that is. Uh, University of Miami, the actual Miami in Florida, fired their coach Manny Diaz. That actually tells me he was fired. They have signed former Oregon coach Mario Cristobal, which means Oregon is in search for a head coach. They have not signed anybody yet. But then last news that I have so far, Fresno State needing to replace Kellen DeBoer just hired Jeff Tedford, who is a former Fresno State head coach. Looks like he led the team to back-to-back 10-win seasons in 2017 and 18, ultimately resigned due to health issues. So he is healthy enough to coach again, which is very, very exciting. Next, we are going to talk about, Jonathan, you just said it, thoughts on Heisman finalists. Because the season is over, we are going to start looking at Heisman finalists because that award will be given out very soon. I don't know exactly when. I've seen reports where it's really down to 2. I've seen reports where it's down to 3. I'm looking at a website right now and it has 3 and it's missing someone who has been on there for a while. But the biggest finalist for the Heisman, Bryce Young, quarterback for Alabama, Kenny Pickett, quarterback for Pittsburgh, Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end for Michigan, and then the one that is not on here for some reason, and I imagine there's a good reason why, and I'm just not seeing it, CJ Stroud, quarterback of Ohio State. A lot of the stuff that I have read, it's really between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Bryce Young, of course, had that monster game against Miami to open up the season. And then what he just did against Georgia is the biggest thing too. Okay, now I'm on ESPN's website and they have CJ Stroud on there as well. But yeah, Bryce Young is probably the favorite. CJ Stroud also had a great year this year. Led Ohio State to a 10-2 season. Favorite to win the Big Ten for most of it. Kenny Pickett's kind of that dark horse. Led Pittsburgh to one of their best seasons. Did a great job. He did have a couple off games, which actually hurt Pittsburgh in the long run, which we know anything about the Heisman. Having one off day doesn't mean anything. Having 2 or 3 also doesn't mean anything. And then Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end, great defensive end. This was obviously Michigan's best year that they've had, I think ever. Definitely since I can remember, and I remember when they, I believe it was 2007, they were undefeated going up against Ohio State with Chad Henne and Mario Manningham, and lost to Ohio State, and then just had a huge downfall right after that. But they haven't had a great defense. Aiden Hutchinson was scary this year. Defensive players don't win the Heisman. It's sad to say. Oh yeah, and that Jonathan he broke all of Dan Marino's Pittsburgh records, of course, talking about Kenny Pickett. Yeah, he had a great year this year. He just has 2 people in front of him that have much better years. But yeah, going back with Aiden Hutchinson, defensive players generally do not win the Heisman. It has happened before. What is his name? Desmond. Is it Desmond Howard? He's the college football analyst, does College Game Day. I believe he was a cornerback with Michigan. I know he went to Michigan. Pretty sure he was a cornerback. Um, he won the Heisman. I think his biggest thing was punt return and kick return. They like to see being able to help with the offense, being able to score. And so, yes, and Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith was a receiver. They've given it to receivers before, I'm pretty sure. They've also given it to running backs. But yeah, Desmond, I'm pretty sure it's Desmond Howard. Which now I'm never going to be asked to be on College Game Day. I'm all right with that. I'm kidding. College Game Day, if y'all are watching this, please have me on one time. I would love to do it. But yeah, they don't normally give it to defensive players. I know Kayvon Thibodeau of Oregon was a favorite this year. It was like you have to play every down. You have to disrupt. Um, you have to be unstoppable. I don't think he had that year. Will we get a defensive Heisman? Yes. It'll happen eventually. Again, we've had one before. Yeah, we'll have one eventually, but just not yet. But I definitely think it's between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I think I'd give it to CJ Stroud, just because he had an overall better year, in my opinion. They're going to give it to Bryce Young. Bryce Young is going to win the Heisman this year, because they usually give it to someone who has an amazing game and is able to lead his team to a conference championship. That's usually how it happens. They don't look at the full season as much. They look at kind of highlights. And that Miami game, it's tough to beat that. This Georgia game, it's tough to beat that. The fact that he was able to have two amazing performances, and then a decent performance in the middle, I do think Bryce Young is going to get it. And then, Jonathan, is Kenny Pickett the first quarterback to be drafted in the first round? No. Matt Corral will be the first quarterback drafted of this year. And again, we'll talk a lot. We'll do kind of those mock drafts. I'm sure you'll see it on Inside the Horseshoe. I might do one if I'm not able to do one there. That'll be fun just to have a whole mock draft episode. I do think it's Matt Corral. Again, once we get to the combine, we'll start seeing some of those intangible stuff. And then we'll kind of see what's being heard out there. But I don't think Kenny Pickett will be the first quarterback. He'll definitely be up there, though. He'll be at least one of the first three picked up. So it's only going to be a matter of where does he go. Next, I do just want to kind of break down all of the bowl games that are going on. Of course, this is the fun time of the year where you find two teams that do not play each other normally playing together because they both had great years. So we're going to start off with the random no-name college bowls. December 17th, we have the Bahamas Bowl. We will see Middle Tennessee taking on Toledo. Same day, we will see the Cure Bowl, which I have no idea what the Cure Bowl is. But I do know it will be Northern Illinois versus Coastal Carolina. The Boca Raton Bowl will be Western Kentucky versus Appalachian State. The New Mexico Bowl will be University of Texas El Paso versus Fresno State. The Independence Bowl will be BYU, Brigham Young University, versus the University of Alabama Birmingham, the Blazers. The Lending Tree Bowl will be Eastern Michigan versus Liberty. Talk about another quarterback who might be drafted soon. The Los Angeles Bowl will be Utah State taking on Oregon State. The New Orleans Bowl will be Marshall taking on Louisiana. This is Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. The Myrtle Beach Bowl will be Tulsa versus Old Dominion. The famous Idaho Bowl will be Kent State versus Wyoming. The Frisco Bowl will be University of Texas and San Antonio versus San Diego State. The Armed Forces Bowl will be Army versus Missouri. The Frisco Classic will be Miami of Ohio versus North Texas. The Gasparilla Bowl will be Florida versus UCF. The Hawaii Bowl will be Memphis versus Hawaii. The Camellia Bowl will be Ball State versus Georgia State. The Quick Lane Bowl will be Western Michigan versus Nevada. The Military Bowl will be Eastern Carolina versus Boston College. The Birmingham Bowl will be Houston versus Auburn. The First Responder Bowl will be Louisville versus Air Force. The Holiday Bowl will be UCLA versus NC State. The Liberty Bowl will be Texas Tech versus Mississippi State. Interesting game there because there's a lot of Mike Leach stuff going on. Mike Leach, the coach for Mississippi State, former coach for Texas Tech. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl will be Minnesota versus West Virginia. The Fenway Bowl will be Virginia versus Southern Methodist University. The Pinstripe Bowl will be Virginia Tech versus Maryland. The Cheez-It Bowl will be Clemson versus Iowa State. The Alamo Bowl will be Oklahoma versus Oregon. Hopefully Oregon has better luck this year than they had the last time they played in the Alamo Bowl. They took on TCU. It's like 3-4 years ago. They were up like 28-0, 32-0. Go to halftime, come back. Coach Gary Patterson of the Texas Christian University of Horned Frogs changed his shirt and led TCU back to win the game. It was the biggest point differential win, or not point differential win, but biggest comeback in bowl history. The Duke's Mayo Bowl will be North Carolina versus South Carolina. The Music City Bowl will be Purdue versus Tennessee. The Las Vegas Bowl will be Wisconsin versus Arizona State. The Tax Slayer Bowl will be Wake Forest versus Texas A&M. The Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl will be Miami, the actual Miami, versus Washington State. The Arizona Bowl will be Central Michigan versus Boise State. The Outback Bowl will be Penn State versus Arkansas. The Citrus Bowl will be Iowa versus Kentucky. And then the Texas Bowl will be Kansas State versus LSU. Those are what's listed here is the other 2021 bowl games. Now we're going to go to the New Year's 6 bowl games. These are the big bowl games. The Sugar Bowl will be Baylor versus Ole Miss. The Rose Bowl will be Ohio State versus Utah. The Fiesta Bowl will be Notre Dame versus Oklahoma State. And the Peach Bowl will be Michigan State versus Pittsburgh. On the 31st, we have the Orange Bowl, which will be Michigan versus Georgia, and the Cotton Bowl, which is Alabama versus Cincinnati. And then on the 10th, we will have the national championship game versus two teams that are undetermined. We will not find out until the 31st. That has been it for today's episode of TMG Takes the Field. A lot of exciting stuff going on in the world of college football. Bowl season is one of those crazy times because you never know what's going to happen. Is it going to be a boring game? Well, I can't think of a boring game right now because they're not memorable. Or will it be an exciting game? Will there be amazing plays like the Jadeveon Clowney where he killed a man in Michigan that 1 year for the Outback Bowl? What play are we going to talk about for years to come? I don't know. But we will definitely see within this month and the beginning of January. But with that, please, if you like this video, click that little thumbs up button. It means a lot to me. And leave a comment. Tell me something you liked. What bowl game are you most excited for? For me, it's the Hawaii Bowl. Or no, it's the Gasparilla Bowl, Florida versus UCF, because I just scrolled down and saw that one and thought it was a very fun name. What bowl game are you most excited for outside of the college football playoffs? No, say that. Um, yeah, be sure to subscribe because we have a lot of cool stuff going around all the time. I do this weekly. Colton Roberts has the Supernova Show. We also have Movie Battlegrounds run by Aaron Knoll. A lot of cool stuff going on there. And then also our sister channel, TMG Trivia. I will be posting here in a little bit the next tournament match, which sees David Garcia, the Spaniard, taking on Zachary Shelton, the Nightmare, as he once was called, but is now known as Movie Fan Z. That was a lot of fun. One guy's super confident, one guy not confident. We'll see how that works. But for everyone in TMG Trivia and TMG Entertainment, thank you so much for watching. Go home, wash your hands, make other smart choices, be safe, or don't. I'm not your dad. I don't care. But I could be your papa.